Assalamu alaikum dear students. Today our topic is velocity time graph for uniformly accelerated motion. First was the velocity time graph. The graph plotted between velocity and time for a body having uniform accelerated motion is known as velocity time graph. As we know, velocity time relation is given by, in previous lecture we have discussed it. Velocity time relation is given by v is equal to u plus at, where u is the initial velocity and a is acceleration. Both are constant. Now this relation shows that at t is equal to 0, that at t is equal to 0. Look here, as t is equal to 0, when we apply t is equal to 0, this will become 0. So at that time v is equal to u. V is equal to, what does that mean? V is equal to, that means final velocity is equal to the initial velocity. When at time t is equal to 0, v is equal to u, and after that we see the v increases uniformly with time, and then v increases uniformly with time. Now I have drawn here the graph between the velocity and time. It is known as a VT graph, that means velocity time graph. For a uniformly accelerated body or having a uniform positive acceleration is shown in figure first. The velocity time graph for a body moving with uniform positive acceleration is shown in figure first. That means this is a graph plotted between the velocity and time for a body which is moving with a uniform positive acceleration. This is also known as VT graph. What does it mean with VT graph? That is velocity and time graph. This is known as velocity time graph. Now, how to determine the acceleration of a body or a particle using the velocity time graph? Now, dear students, we'll see how to determine the acceleration of a particle using the velocity time graph or on the velocity time graph. Now, for this, consider 2 points, A and B on the velocity time graph. Look here, let V1 be the velocity of the particle at instant t1 corresponding to point A, and V2 be the velocity of the particle at instant t2 corresponding to point B. I will write it here. Consider 2 points A and B on the VT graph as shown in figure first. Here are 2 points A and B on the velocity time graph. Now let V1 be the velocity of the particle at instant t1 corresponding to point A, and let V2 be this velocity at instant t2 corresponding to point B. Now look here. At point A, V1 is the velocity at the instant time t1, and V2 be the velocity of the particle at point B at the instant t2. Now, how might change the velocity? How might change the velocity taken away when the particle moves from point A to B? Now, change in velocity of the particle when it moves from A to B. Now we'll see when the particle moves from A to B, how might change the velocity have taken place. That is final velocity minus initial velocity. That is V1 and V2. Now the time taken for this change in the velocity is equal to T2 minus T1. That means this change in the velocity have taken during a time interval of T2 minus T1. Time taken for this change in velocity is equal to T2 minus T1. That means the change in the velocity is V2 minus V1. That change takes place in a time interval of T2 minus T1. Therefore, acceleration, it is not by A, it is equal to change in velocity divided by time taken. That is change in velocity. How much is change in velocity? That is V2 minus V1 divided by change time taken, that is T2 minus T1. Now look here, this V2 minus 1, it is equal from the velocity time graph, it is equal to BC divided by T2 minus T1 is equal to AC. What is called A is equal to acceleration is equal to BC divided by AC. What is BC divided by AC? That is known as slope of graph or line AB. That is the slope of the graph or the slope of the line AB. That means the acceleration of the particle which is moving with the uniform accelerated motion is the slope of the line or the slope of the velocity time graph. Thus, the acceleration of a uniform accelerated motion, thus the acceleration of uniformly accelerated motion is equal to the slope of the graph. This is the velocity time graph for uniformly accelerated motion. We have derived the equation, and from this graph we confirm that the acceleration it is equal to the change in velocity divided by time, that is equal to the BC divided by AC, and from graph this BC divided by AC, it is the slope of the graph, velocity time graph, or we can say that it is the slope of the line A and B. Thus, the acceleration of a uniformly accelerated motion is equal to the slope of the velocity time graph. Thank you.